to 2021. Um, so what Fusion has been for me has been like one of the most enriching and like loving experiences that I've ever like, gone through. Uh, these past 2 years have been some of the best and like most amazing times I've ever and probably will experience. And I would love to give that sense of friendship, that sense of family, back to the people that have like made it what it is. I'm absolutely like astonished by everything Fusion has done. Like it's been like through all its struggles and through all its hardships, it always comes out this amazing, beautiful thing where people get together, have fun, and treat each other as like the best of their ability. And I love the sense of friendship that's come through. So I hope as president to sort of like encourage that. I always want to find a way to basically just like give back to my community and seeing how we're an engineering org. I would also love to sort of endorse what Sammy has done on both sides, where not only does we extend each other towards being just an engineer or just being a social club, we manage to expand on both sides. And I'd love to keep that trend going of keeping up this idea of professionality while also keeping a sense of fun and family. That's my goal as a president. Yeah, that's my speech.
Okay. We could open this up to questions from everyone.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Yes, go
So
ahead.
you're talking about you wanting to expand both sides of being professional and as well as like keeping the tight family knit kind of thing. What are your plans for expanding both of those?
Uh, so I found that in comparison from like this first year or from the last year to this year, we found a great improvement in terms of our project. The fact that we were actually able to have like the two teams complete both their projects and actually have an event where we could show not just like the finished product, but actually being in use. We were going to continue this project further with the spring quarter where we were supposed to be able to essentially have this sort of like um, school-wide all STEM building engineering project where you could do stuff that's related to whatever your focus is. With computer science, you could be building like a simulation or just sort of like code for like SolidWorks or something. And with engineers, it's like building like an actual maybe model of what the real piece would look like. And it'd be like fictional pieces. And that event was supposed to be like a really big project we're gonna have, but unfortunately with the whole Corona thing, it got canceled. So I hope that I can like make sure if everything goes well for the next year, although it was unavoidable and it was supposed to happen, I hope to make sure it happens for next year. I want to make sure that we keep this idea, this project, all these stuff you have planned for this year, keep running on for a second year. And in terms of keeping it for expanding us socially, uh, I'm really looking forward to this sort of like the way we have so many like events tailored to special like special like focuses or like your hobbies, such as like the project of fusing and the project that we have going on with Discord with everything being online. It's opened up so many more doorways for ways we can basically add more projects or like activities to the club. And I hope to expand through that first, both virtually and in real life. So that's a hope that I have.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Hi, I'm Sid.
Nice to meet you.
Hi. So my question is, what qualities do you have that you believe will make you a successful president?
One thing is that I'm very open to ideas. I'm very like wide out to whatever people have to say, and I love like listening and like cheering on new ideas. And so I'm very progressive in that sense. So I love to see like because I'm sure whatever future board comes along, if I'm lucky enough to be a part of that, I know they all have great and amazing ideas for the club, and I'll love to hear all their voices and ensure that any ideas that they may have or can do uh, can be brought up and potentially put into action. So I'm a very like open person. I love listening to what people have to say, and I'm always there to make sure and respond and improve not only myself and make sure what I'm doing is going well, but I'm always like critiquing of how I can be better, and also making sure that the people around me are doing things to the best of their ability. And I love that sense of like honesty and making sure this environment keeps up because that's how I feel about myself. So I'd like to keep this sense of openness and hopefully like make sure everybody's voices are up. I love that like sense in people, so I want to make sure I do that to myself. Yeah, sorry.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Okay, so with being in board and facilitating meetings for general members, sometimes there can be moments where general members may feel as if they've already attended the same meeting twice. Like, let's say if they've been members for multiple years, right? So how will you create an environment for innovation and for new ideas to be brought about within your team, and even maybe expanding that on to general members? Like, how would you go about that?
I'm really hoping to sort of expand the sense of activities we usually plan in the club, because so usually whenever we plan any meeting, we always like have ideas from the past or sorts of traditions that we used to do, and we make them happen. But like as fun as like a good tradition may be, it may be setting back because it's the same thing over and over again. So I'd love to bring like a fresh new slate of like meetings, a fresh new slate of like activities that we can all do as a club, while still keeping like very important meetings that we have come to love and like have been like a part of Fusion like in the way it is today professionally. So keeping like alumni meetings and keeping our FSI meetings that'd be of course happening. But I'm also looking for like in terms of activities and like stuff we do, I want to make sure everything we have is brand new or at least hasn't been done in the last like 3-4 years. So that's my hope in terms of improving meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Tammy, you're muted.
I think we have a couple more minutes for the individual Q&A if anyone else has any questions.
I'll ask a question. Tristan Simonte here. This is more of a reflective question. I'd like you to answer truthfully, but as IVP, you were pretty much the person overseeing interns, fam heads, and mentors. Do you think that you've done enough as IVP in this regard to translate well into presidency, where you're overseeing like all the board and the whole club, and why?
So in terms of like the position change from being an IVP to a president, the idea more so than a president is like this seeing all the positions, making sure that, you know, they get a good basic understanding of what they do and improving upon that, helping them from their previous experience with the club and making sure it can go on to do these better things that were sort of like improvements from last year, sort of being a sort of like helping guide. And I would love to continue that sort of presence. I felt as an IVP, I had a very good idea in the sense of like what I do as a role and how I could have improved better in my job for the past year. And so I believe that considering how an IVP position, it's all about basically like ensuring that or having an idea of how these programs are going, as well as sort of like being a support in terms of like what goes on in the club and being in charge of internal relations. I feel like translate well to being a president, as instead of overseeing this bigger group, I'm overseeing a much smaller group and making sure that whatever mistakes I feel like we had or saw from this previous year could translate and be improved upon for the next year. So I feel like being an IVP gave me the idea of what was going on because I always had a sense of what was happening in every position. And I can always continuously improve from the constant like advice or constant like communication I have with like the people around me and whatever they tell me could be improved. So I love to continue that for this year. As, yeah, I feel like that's how IVP helped me personally for being a president position. So yeah.
I have a question. Hi, I'm Jesse. My question is, can you list your weaknesses and provide examples of how you'd like to overcome it if you were given the position of president for next year?
Gotcha. So in terms of weaknesses, there are times when, like, of course, like I will feel like very like lazy, in the sense that it's not that I would get like anything done, it's that I take time to like get back to what I'm doing or have time like focusing. And so like just to counter that, like just like with this year, like every year I've had in college so far has been becoming lighter and lighter work. So in terms of getting my focus better suited to different things or like having better focus for one singular like goal, I feel like I can do that better for next year, considering there's like a less of a workload with other things. And so I'll be able to give more attention to Fusion in terms of that. And another weakness I have is honestly just like sometimes like I'll have trouble communicating, but I felt like that's what this year has been a big blessing for. It's been helping me improve that, like just being more aware of things, making sure to keep talking to people, having a sense of like let's make sure like things are going well. So I feel like to improve upon that, like I would just like to have just besides just obviously more documentation, just more like little chatter like with the people going around me. I feel like with meetings, that allows me to give me a lot more attention to individuals if I was to do presidential one-on-ones. And so that'll help me just sort of get this idea of like talking to people and making sure what needs to happen, what they can know, what they don't know, making sure people are giving them knowledge they need to succeed in life and the club. Yeah, so it's being more aware of like that. Yeah.
Anyone have any more questions for Xavier?
I have a question.
Go for it.
Can you just give me an example or a couple of examples of how you intend to, like, as the board leader, like guide everybody through their work and make sure everyone's getting things done on time and productively?
Mm-hmm. So I would essentially, I would love, first of all, in establishing the sort of things we do in Fusion, I would love to sort of establish and go over the things we did in the previous years, just so they have an idea of like what we can do, what the potential we have to change, what potential there is, and kind of like work we have in the club, and then sort of taking time to see like how their strengths are, like how well they already handle time management, or how well like organized they are in their things, and based on like their schedule and everything, I'll like basically allocate the work in a way such that the things that need to be done within their schedule. And so I plan on just having like what Sammy did with this year is like having a well-documented Google Calendar with all the things we have on file, and sort of like bring out reminders for all these projects we're having. I want to basically not just like tell people like, oh yeah, we did this last year, but tell people like, oh yeah, so here's like something we can do to improve upon what we're doing right now. And so it's just sort of having and going over the stuff we've done in the previous years and always being open to seeing and time managing everybody's situation and just making sure that everybody, whatever they're not aware of, I can bring them immediately or just quickly try to go over all the things that need to be done and to be in more, I guess, detail about that. So yeah, I would like to have more focus on like little things I feel like we tend to forget. And so by having more of those personal conversations, I feel will be a big help.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that's all that. You have one more question?
Yeah, real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
How would you go about mediating discord between board members?
Between board members? Well, considering it's a new project, of course with board members, I feel like...
Wait, Austin, do you mean Discord as in like disputes? Or Discord as in the app?
No,
okay,
not the app.
Xavier's
like, yeah,
talking about
disputes.
the app.
Sorry.
So you're talking about the app, like disputes?
Yeah, arguments.
Oh,
like if boards
okay.
didn't get along with each other. I'm sorry, I should have said that.
Okay. Yeah. So, like, I said this like a million times, but I guess like the biggest thing is always communication. But like, honestly, depending on the issue, I would love sort of like to keep a certain sort of standard or a certain type of like a feeling of camaraderie that there is like within like the board meetings, a sense of like sort of like professionalism while also keeping like a fun, like of course, like spirit. Like sort of having like these standards or boundaries within like meetings will help sort of keep like the more personal feelings out of the way. But also I want to make time for like when those like personal feelings like start to happen that like people are aware of their feelings and are able to talk it out. So I'd always like to have to make sure that people when they talk to her, they have like these, whenever I talk to my board members, that if we have like a personal talk or anything that you feel is a personal issue, like to take your time with the problem, and if you feel like it ever becomes too big, communicate it with either who do you think needs to know, and we could take our steps to make sure that whatever happens, like happens professionally, whenever causing too much like trauma. Like you never want to hold back your problems. So I feel like I want everyone to have a comfortable voice, but always have like find a right time to do it. so it doesn't just like pop up and surprise everybody. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.